I call this board meeting to order at 7 o'clock p.m. Yes. Come on, everyone here this evening, and the weather's changed again, so now we're back into fall, maybe into winter, who knows. But glad you're here with us, not only in person but virtually as well. Those who are streaming. We also have opportunity for those who have filled out a form to come before the board and share. And we had one tonight. That'd be Robert Duke, the president of the Blue Ridge Teachers Federation. If you want to come forward this time.
Thank you, Mr. Schneeman and school board members. I'm here on behalf of Schneider Elementary. We would like the board to consider an ongoing issue that we have tried to address for several years. Currently, there are 3 teachers per grade level in kindergarten and first grade. But when the same children move up to second and third grade, the classes get bumped down to only 2 classrooms. This leads to an overcrowding and behavior issues which can impact not only the learning environment but can also create an unsafe environment. We know that the school board is committed to the safety and learning of all children. Keeping classes at a reasonable size would align with the values and mission of our school district and help to create a successful school. Studies show that early learning is the key to the future success. Students who are not reading at grade level by third grade will statistically never catch up to their peers, have a higher chance of dropping out of school, and a higher rate of criminal activity as adults. Successful schools support all students' needs to help them become effective learners. Teachers are expected to offer an exceptional education experience that supports children's academic and social learning in order to help them develop skills. Teachers accomplish this by customizing learning to individual needs of each student. The higher the number of students per classroom, the more difficult teachers have with this endeavor. It appears when administration is overloaded, administrative positions are added. When bookkeeping is overworked, a bookkeeping position is added. When technology departments is overwhelmed, a technology position is added. When the counselors ask for another full-time position, you listened. When the educators who are working directly with students are drowning, we feel like our cries for help are ignored. If our goal is to improve student success and raise standardized test scores, teachers are the key to this success, not additional non-teaching positions. Teachers work directly with the students and the families to support the whole child's learning. The smaller the class size, the more individualized instruction can take place. In addition, smaller class sizes allow for teachers to develop a stronger relationship with each student. With class sizes of 24 and 25 students, teachers may be able to provide higher quality instruction. However, that does not mean the students learn it. There are simply too many students to manage effectively. The close physical contact also makes social distancing difficult, as well as making a quick exit in case of an emergency virtually impossible. Please consider that our focus in a school should provide the best for our students so they can be successful. If we want our school to thrive, please support your teachers with this issue. As this has been an ongoing concern, we look forward to having deeper conversations with you throughout bargaining to address this issue. Thank you for your time and service and consideration. Mrs. Stanifer and I have already had a conversation about this. It was short. I think the first, second, and third grade teachers would like to meet with Ms. Stanifer and just discuss it and get this ball rolling, or at least work out maybe some solutions, if that's possible. Please and thank you.
Thank you, Rob. May I just respond real quick? Typically, I don't on the public comments, but in any hires that we do, whatever positions they are, we always have heartening conversations amongst the board members that, well, this position, we do not want it to affect the ability to hire and help with the teachers and the students. We don't want the students to be lacking either. So in all of these decisions that we make, we always are thinking, this is not going to make us not be able to fulfill another position where it's needed to help others. So we appreciate that.
And I understand hiring a tech guy, it's going to save the district money. Totally get it. I get it. Just bringing it up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We're moving on to exemplary nights because we have a lot of exemplary students here in our district. Worked really hard, and all their grades show it, and their personalities, and their work ethics, and their study habits, and so forth. We're going to go a little backwards today. We're going to start out with the older kids this evening. And I think we have one high schooler here this evening. Ashlyn Voiles is here. Hank Mitchell's not able to be here, but if you come up here, Ashlyn, please. And remain standing. We wanted you to make the back row, okay? In the 8th graders, we have Jackson Berkler, who's not able to be here. We have a 7th grader, Addison Browning. The 6th grader, Naylin Slade, is not able to be here. And a 5th grader, Ellie Clark, is unable to be here. A 4th grader, Piper Tybel, is not able to be here with us. But we do have a 3rd grader, Cora Ellis, here with us this evening. 2nd grader, Lexi Popejoy. We have a 1st grader, Ava Meyer. And we have a kindergarten here this evening, Joshua Scott. All right, if you guys just line up, keep lined up here. Let's all give them a big hand of applause. We'll get a picture taken. It's always great. We appreciate those who nominate the children, the students, and the staff both. We appreciate all the little description of why they were chosen.
Parents, you guys want to come take pictures?
Photo op. All right. Okay. I think you've got them all. You may be seated. We also we want to recognize our exemplary staff members as well, because they've been recognized by their peers for all that they've done for us and for the district, for the students themselves. And they're in the background, and sometimes they're not thanked enough, and this is a way of us saying thank you. We have from the Blue Ridge High School, Ken Seneca, and many of you know Ken has done a lot of outstanding things for the district and is busy helping out with the new transportation building. Blue Ridge Intermediate Junior High School, Don Stout, and Schneider Elementary is Sandy Klein. So let's give them a hand. They're not able to be here. Thank you. Moving on, we have with us here this evening for a presentation Ginger Duncan, the clarification of student opportunities.
Good evening. Yeah, I did actually send the email. It's for her student clarification, opportunities and equality for our students. My husband and I have been taxpayers for 20 years. We appreciate all the service you've done on the school board. And we just had a couple of questions because I have 2 kiddos right now that are in the senior level, and it would be sophomore levels of high school. We do homeschool our kiddos, however, they are very active in all the extracurricular activities. They were just on the soccer team, for instance, and plan on being sports. However, last year was a crazy year, and I had checked to see if they could come to the one activity, which was it wasn't prom, but it was like a post-prom activity. And because of everything that was going on, I checked with the principal and superintendent and was informed that they would not be allowed to come because of what, was going on. But they assured me that this year it should change. So I was surprised when I called to see what we needed to do so that they could attend this year for the homecoming, because my son's a senior and he really wants to be able to attend the dances, as well as, since he plays sports and everything. I was told that he could not attend because he was not enrolled in any class. However, my son is in college courses. They're dual credit at Parkland. So there was nothing, I didn't want to bring him to, I want to keep him at the highest level possible. But he did play sports. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, what the qualifications are, because I was told that he had to be enrolled. But we've always been part of the school district, and he's playing sports. They were on the float building committee, and so I'm hoping to make sure that in the future he'll be able to attend any of the other dances along with my daughter and other kiddos. Do you have any, I guess I'm just looking for help on how to make sure that I can make this possible for them, so that that is something that we can achieve. Because I had heard that the football team was invited. My kiddos were on the soccer team, but were not allowed to come. I do have pictures of kids that attended the dance that are not enrolled and are not in our Blue Ridge School District. Of course, I would show you in closed session if you would need that information. I'm just hoping to see what I can do. I'm happy to chaperone at the dances if that would help, or help donate for the cause, but I'm hoping to see what can be done so that they can attend from now on for any future activities that are, dance related.
Do we have any questions? You need some clarification, Hillary, on that?
So a little bit of clarification. So students for homecoming this year, unfortunately, I could see when we were at the prom season in 2021, I think we all thought that by the time we got to fall of 2021 that things would definitely be different. But unfortunately, we still have a lot of COVID restrictions that we have to comply with to keep our kids and staff safe. And so the decision was made for homecoming for this year, fall of 2021, that no guests would be invited. And so that's where homeschooled students, if there was a student who was homeschooled for a portion of the day but enrolled for another portion of the day, then they would be considered enrolled with what we call a SIS number, a state identification number, and that would be what would allow them to come to those dances, homecoming, prom. If we get to prom season of 2022 and guests are allowed, then that would be how they would access, homeschooled students would be able to access in that way. I can't really tell what May is going to hold right now. We would like to think that things would be a little bit closer to normal, but I don't know that any one of us can promise that at this point.
Which I could understand. However, since there were students they weren't even students, were allowed to attend homecoming, I want to make sure that my children can attend prom no matter what, because this is our school district. This is where we pay taxes and where we've been paying taxes for 20-some years. And this is the school district that we support. My daughter was enrolled in driver's ed, and she's taking driver's ed. She took the class last year, and she's finished the class and, of course, passed, and now she's taking the driving part of it, so she's not in a classroom. But my son, like I said, is taking dual credit classes. So I'm asking you to help us, find a way so that for sure he's allowed to go to prom, because I can't make this up. This is, something that's a life event and something that we're hoping that he can attend so that, all of his friends are here. He plays soccer, he'll play baseball, basketball is a thing he comes and cheers everybody on, as well as my daughter, who's a sophomore. And then I have another younger daughter that'll be coming up. So I'm hoping that there's an answer that I can have where it'll be guaranteed that they can go, because this is something that has hurt them, and I don't know how to explain. When I've tried talking, it was an interim principal at the time, and of course with our superintendent, I was told that a committee decided of 3 people that involved the superintendent, the interim principal, and 1 teacher. I was told on April 29th of 2021 that this committee decided, and that the Blue Ridge School District Board was not part of that decision, and that's how they had originally made it. I know there were opportunities and weird things going on from COVID, but now that we have learned more about it, I'm asking to make sure that there's a way that we can guarantee that they can go, so you help them from stop hurting, and I can explain how we're doing everything we can so they can be a part of our community, because this is our school district.
Okay, well, we appreciate that, and we understand you're not just one person, you're speaking on behalf of other families as well, so appreciate that.
Great, and then when could I have an answer for this, like within a week, or what's something where we could?
That's something that we can discuss as
Okay.
a board, and
And
see how the administration is going to look at that. It's a lot of things there, like you said, there's some things with COVID related issues that we have to follow protocol. And so with students in-house, that also with students out-of-house. So let us have some time to discuss that, okay?
Okay, great, and then can I have an answer within the week? Like, is this something you can talk about?
I can't guarantee you when that's going to happen. I can't guarantee you how quick we can get you an answer back, though, okay?
Is it something that can happen before the end of this year, 2021?
Well, I'd hope that's something that we can discuss in our good discussion times at the end of the meeting or something like that. We can bring it back up and discuss.
Okay, and
Right.
then, so by the end of the year, it would be a reasonable time to expect?
Again, I can't say. It depends on, we need to talk as a board together, and then we can give you some better direction that our superintendent can get back in touch with you, okay?
Okay,
And if you don't hear from me by the end of December, feel free to call me that last week of school.
okay, thank you.
We have move on to communication with the FOIA request. Is there anything there pertinent that you need to share?
No, new FOIA request was given by Smart Procure. They've been hitting us quite a bit recently. They just wanted some personnel information, everything that's public record, and that was taken care of in a timely fashion.
And committee reports.
No committee reports, but tonight we had our finance committee meeting canceled because Kent Kuhl with our AFR was not ready yet, so he should be ready next month, so December 15th. I was hoping the finance committee could meet at 6 p.m. to meet with Kent at that time for the AFR.
Okay. And we have moving on to our administrative reports. It's back to you, Dr. Stanick.
Okay, that would be me. First thing I wanted to say was I wanted to, as we've had our transition of operations and maintenance supervisors from Greg Bilta to Doug Berkman, wanted to publicly thank Greg for the many years of service to the district, being inside each of our buildings 365 days a year just to make sure that everything is running safe and sound. So a big thank you to Greg for all those efforts. And then we welcome Doug Berkman, who is put his feet down very quickly, and he's running and keeping very busy. He's been meeting a lot of our HVAC support people already and making good plans and answering lots of questions, and has met with the principals already too. So I want to thank him for that. I will update you and tell you that we are actually in week 3 of our shield testing in-house, and it's quite a thing to witness to see all of that going on so quickly. Things are working well. We're just now getting to the place where we're trying to implement test to stay. It's not as easy as it might seem from the onset, and you can see the faces there in the audience. They'll tell you there's still a lot of work to do. We have to get the supplies, and there's so many different layers of people that you have to talk to, and they all have different roles, and they don't always know who's going to answer what question. So we've been asking for a week about having extra supplies and when can we start test to stay. We've successfully been able to do one test and send it with our BACC driver and get it to the lab, but it was sent with a rubber band around a little index card with the tube inside, and I know they want it differently, but we haven't been able to find out yet. So just today I found out that somebody should be calling me tomorrow to tell us about the racks and the tubs and the numbers that have to go with these kits. That's going to help us do test to stay. One of the very important things, especially for anybody who's watching online, is that we have to have proper and consistent mask wearing for anybody to be eligible for the test to stay program. So if your face is showing like mine is right now, you're not going to be eligible for test to stay. You have to be covered up when you're near that person who you later find out has tested positive, and you have to remain asymptomatic for us to be able to test you every other day so you can stay. So that's something that will go out in my newsletter. And the other push right now would be for students to bring their own masks. We have some who it's not just a once in a while I forget my mask, but it's every day. And every day I'm needing to be given 2 or 3 masks. And so DeWitt County Emergency Management has been giving us masks, and we've purchased some through our grant monies, but it would be nice if everybody could chip in and make sure they were prepared themselves. So we'd appreciate that. And would you like to transition to the tax levy now?
Yes.
Alrighty, so we have the double presentation here so everybody can follow along. So one of the pieces that was brought up during strategic planning back on October 16th was that they would like to have not only continue the great fiscal responsibility that the district has shown over the last number of years, thanks to the previous superintendent and those before her, but they also want the superintendent to give more instruction about school finance. It's a subject that everybody likes to hear a little bit more about, especially on a Wednesday evening. So here we go, school finance. We get our funding from 3 main sources, federal, state, and local dollars. For Blue Ridge, in a minute you'll see a pie chart that shows us how heavily we are reliant upon our local funding. And that local funding comes through the annual tax levy. That's why it's so very important. State money is received. We'll talk a little bit more about EBF, or evidence-based funding, in just a little bit. But we also receive money reimbursement for transportation, special education, early childhood, a couple other things that are listed there. Federal money, we get the least amount of that, but most of all you have heard of things like title grants, Title 1, 2, and 4. The ESSER grants are the federal money that's come our way because of COVID. And we also do get some special education, preschool, and food service through that federal money as well. So there's a nice pictorial of how heavily we rely as a district upon local sources. Over 85% of our funding comes from our local tax dollars. Then you can see just over 10% for state sources, and then federal, just a little bit slice at 3.6%. So going with our smallest group first, Title 1, 2, and 4, those monies, and Paige is the one that writes and manages these grants, working with Krista Voiles very closely, because that greatly impacts how we budget things. But that's going to cover things like our Title I teachers, their salaries and their benefits, a lot of professional development and coaching in the areas of English and math, and then there's also technology money and social and emotional learning money sitting inside of the title grants. The ESSER grants, again, which is new because of COVID. The ESSER 1 grant, that was the first one that came about, and we did a lot of technology pieces so we could have our students learning remotely. That was in the very early parts of COVID. And a lot of polycarbonate shields that were up in secretarial spaces, all the PPE, reopening committee salaries, and of course purchasing our online curriculum. If you remember, we had a group called the Knights that weren't coming to school at all, and so we had to pay a very high price for that education for them. Then ESSER 2 monies came along. ESSER 2 is just over $400,000. The bulk of that money was spent on installation of fresh air units at the intermediate junior high and ongoing HVAC repairs with our Daikin units over there. It also funded our summer school last year and will fund our upcoming summer school in 2022. Then there's ESSER 3. At first it was posted at about $911,000, and for some reason sometimes these grants increase. That's a good thing. So now that grant is about $928,000, and we can spend it through the end of September in 2024. So really we're just starting to touch this grant. And every time you make a change, Paige makes an amendment, and you reprint all the budget pages, and that goes to Krista, and it's a big process. But so far, that's going to fund the kindergarten jumpstart for 2 years, 23 and 24, summer school for 23 and 24. Mrs. Diener is paid out of ESSER 3. both this year and next year. Spanish and health curriculum updates, supplemental math materials, and more technology have been funded or will be funded through ESSER 3. Going to the next slice of the pie with the state funding, a lot of what you hear about state funding is EBF, or evidence-based funding. That's the funding model that really looks at trying to provide equitable funding for all districts in Illinois, north, south, east, west, everywhere, rural, urban. The state's formula looks at our specific enrollment size with all the reports that we do and specific student needs, and they calculate, they throw it into a formula, and they come up with a number that's called the adequacy target. Our adequacy target for Blue Ridge, based on who our kids are, how many we have, and what their needs are, is $7.8 million and a little bit more. And so the state gives us a base funding minimum of $886,000, and they look at our capacity to bring in local funds, and they have found us to be at 105% of adequacy, which means that we're financially sound. So we're labeled now as a Tier 4 school district. And what that means for our EBF funding is that we'll always be held harmless, which means we'll always get the same amount that we did last year. Any new monies, because we're healthy and called a Tier 4 district, we only get 0.01%. Teeny bit of any new monies that go towards EBF. The districts that are not in good shape financially would get more money than we would, which makes sense. Just to give you an idea, the new EBF funding for this year, $630 for us, so a very small amount. Next, we'll go to the local funding. So the tax levy is based on the Equalized Assessed Valuation, or you hear the term EAV, of the property within the boundaries of the district. And you know we have 212 square mile footprint. We have a lot of very rich farmland, which serves us well. The farmland assessment system, they found that there were some errors in that, and so back in 2015, they decided to start calculating farmland EAV a little bit differently. So there was a little bit of change in the EAV for our farmland, but basically it's going to be, our EAV increase for farmland might be a little bit smaller, but it's going to have a pretty strong guarantee of continuing to increase still for the next 10 years. There's a little graph for you to show the 10 trend data for EAV back from 2012 all the way up through 2021. And those EAV estimates come from all three of our county clerks in the fall. So for this year, we're anticipating, with what they've told us, 4.03% increase. And you can see what the 5 and 10-year averages have been. So when the tax money comes in, then that is distributed based upon the rates for the tax levy. Those are distributed into the 9 school district funds that you hear us talking about, education fund all the way through the health, life, safety fund. What we don't levy for is actually bond and interest. They don't ask school districts to do that. The county clerk does that. So it's our job as a school district to make sure that they've done that correctly. So that goes into our calculations, but technically they're the ones that determine that level. And here's a diagram of the bond and interest tax rate. So this is basically how much of our tax levy is going for paying off our district debt. So you can see back in 2012 and 13, there was a sharp rise right there. What you're seeing right now at the very end, and those numbers are kind of skewed to the right, our bond and interest tax rate is 0.4857. And if you can see from the other numbers up there, that is the lowest since 2013. So some of the restructuring that we did, if you remember, in the last school year, before Susan left, she started the process of refinancing the 2012 bonds. And what that did was we took advantage of the low rates so we could get the savings back to the taxpayers. That's what helped drop that bond and interest rate. So we saved the taxpayers about $500,000. And then since that worked out so well, we decided to go ahead and have a little bit more fun and refinance the 2014 bond issue. And at that time, we decided that we would simultaneously issue working cash bonds. So that means that that money came into the working cash fund for the school district. So that is what has allowed us to work on the transportation office building. and the tax rate trends. So the very top line is showing you the overall tax rate. Right underneath that is what's called the operating tax rate, and then very down at the bottom, that's what's called the bond and interest tax rate. So I'll point out a couple things that, like we said, the very bottom, we have the lowest bond and interest tax rate that we've had since 2013. And you can see it's been very steady, but it is actually on the lower side right now. And then if you look at the overall tax rate, that's actually the lowest that we've had since before 2012. That's the lowest overall tax rate that you see on that entire graph right there. So we're doing very well. We're about where we were last year, but technically we're a tad bit lower. And that's just a final picture of the last 3 years for comparison. So starting at the top, the operating tax rate you can see is staying very steady. The bond and interest rate is going down a little bit because of that refinancing, and then the overall tax rate, you can see the impact there. So just a little bit lower than before. And that brings us to, if you have any questions.
If we do, we know where your email is, and you can call into the district office if you have any questions about that presentation.
Please
for
do.
clarification.
Yeah.
Moving on, if no one has any questions, to the strategic planning update.
For the strategic planning update, I wanted to, you see in your packet that we have a very detailed summary of the work that was done on October 16th, on that Saturday, with Patrick Allen leading the way. What we have started to do at Administrative Council is to look at those core values that were listed. We read through all the Post-it note information to make sure, because not everybody got to see every Post-it note, because you were sent to one area to do the summary. So now the administrative team, who's sitting in front of you, has had the chance to read through that very beginning part of the packet. And then what we decided for our plan was that we were going to, there's 5 sets of broad board goals in there for those different areas of facilities and finance, community district relations, student achievement and academics, and programs and services. So we are going to, through Administrative Council, take one of those broad board goal areas and develop the SMART goals that will supplement or support that broad board goal. We're going to work on one area per month, so we'll bring back that first set in December, and then we'll work through January, February, March, and April, and then hopefully by the time we hit May, you're ready to approve the entire plan. Along the way, what I hope to do is, through the email addresses for all 28 people who are at strategic planning, I'm going to give them an update as it comes to your board packet so they can see it as well. And if they have any feedback, they'd be welcome to share that with us. And then we're also going to keep our district ILT apprised of the progress that we're making. So we're going to take some time and hopefully do some very productive work for you.
All right. I thought it was very unique on page 63, or 16 on your 63 on your board book, about the prioritization of the projects for the district. So I was wondering how that would come out. Okay. If you're done, then we'll move on to Mr. Payton. You have the center stage.
All right, I'm just going to highlight a few things tonight. We are excited that we get to bring back our in-person Christmas program this year. So on December 7th, K1 will host our Christmas program. We will be in the old gym this year at the high school, so we're excited once again to have that in person. I know Mrs. Weiler is very excited. I know the kids are excited to get started here very soon with all their preparation for their songs. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. This is one of my favorite parts of the year. We have 2 things that we do during this time that are fun. One is the pumpkin drop. Some of you have seen things on social media, but that is just an event where it's really cool. Students have about a week and a half or so really designing and learning about the engineering process. They kind of look at a problem, which is if I drop a pumpkin from a building, how can I get it from not breaking? So they really go through this full design process. They try out different things. We do actually go up onto the roof, well, I should say, drop it off. At the end, though, they also look at the results. They go back and kind of rethink how they can maybe design something differently. It's just a really cool process to see in action. The kids get very excited. There are various roles kids have, whether it's presenting, designing, building. It's just a very fun day. So I wanted to congratulate those first graders for all their hard work.
I heard that you don't like to be on the roof.
Oh, no, that's my favorite part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, the kids love it. They can't figure out how I get up there. I tell them all sorts of different stories, but eventually I show them the ladders, and then they get it. But no, I don't mind it. It is a little unnerving when you look over the top, you know, and you're right on the edge. But so the other thing is the Pumpkin Olympics. That is something that we have done actually the past couple of years. That is directly related to our PBIS program that we do. And as we've moved forward with a lot of behavior and so on, we're trying to find ways to continue to reinforce positives instead of taking things away. So one of the things that we do is try to provide more initiatives, more reinforcing type ideas throughout the school year. This is one of them. So for individuals that had less than 3 referrals, those individuals were able to go and to participate in this event. You know, there was things like pumpkin bowling, different activities related to art and pumpkins, pumpkin relays. It's just a really fun activity to get them engaged, hopefully, and to show them the results of doing things the right way. So that's mostly all that I have. I'm open to any questions.
Entered a pumpkin for the drop?
No. Well, that's a great, maybe teachers can come up with their own pumpkin design. That would be fun. You know, actually, this is the first, there's so many different things that they've tried over the years. Last year, they tried to use parachute type devices on the outside. You know, they had mild success with that. This year, that was taken away from, that wasn't allowed this year. So they were looking at other options to fill inside. So every year, it kind of evolves a little bit, which makes it fun, I think, for the teachers as well. But no, maybe next year I will have to design my own. That is a good idea.
All right. Katie, you're up next.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Payton. Now, I will say over at the intermediate junior high, we do not show kids how to get onto the roof. So good for you, Mr. Payton. Sometimes I could what? Yes, some of them have in the past, actually. So, a few things for me to highlight this month. We completed our readathon, and I wanted to say thank you to Carrie Painter for organizing that for us. The students raised over $4,000 to benefit our PBIS program, and I know that was a lot of work for her, and I really appreciate everything she did there. We also are bringing back our holiday program. It will be December 9th, and our students are practicing their parts and singing their holiday songs, and it's wonderful to get back to that normal part of our life. And a few other things that we had that got back to normal this last month. We had our first junior high dance in a year and a half, and it was the first dance for any of our junior high students. The 8th graders had never gotten to have that opportunity before. So it was a lot of fun. The kids had a great time. And then also this last month, we brought back the high honor roll field trip. We had done that prior to COVID, but with COVID, we weren't able to do really any field trips, and there were a lot of places that were not accepting students for field trips. So we were able to bring that back. So anyone who has a 3.75 or higher, we do a special day for them. You know, we just look for some different opportunities, and it's a way to celebrate their and give them sort of a fun payback for all of their hard work. Do you guys have any questions for me?
It looks like you had 16, well, actually around 26 kids total with very high GPAs then.
Yes, and I've had a few students who said specifically that they want to try high honor roll for second quarter. That really inspired them to recognition. So we're hoping that those things help turn some of those grades around.
Any questions? All right.
Okay.
Mr. Easter, you have the floor.
Feel like I haven't seen you guys in a while. Yeah, you have all my numbers there. One thing that I didn't put in there, because I just learned about it today, is our STEM club is going to do a Christmas time themed event similar to their Spooktacular, where they had families and kids sign up for stuff. It's going to be I don't know all the details. It has something to do with Santa's sleigh and trying to figure out how to make things fly and gingerbread houses and stuff like that. But the flying things are actually going to be paper airplanes, and they're going to do measurements and stuff and using physics and stuff in the old gym. And then gingerbread houses will have to be able to withstand, I believe, earthquake shakes and stuff like that. So there'll be some judging going on in that, and they're going to get that stuff sent out pretty shortly for people to sign up for that. But it looks like a really neat activity. That's going to be December 3rd. It's a Friday night that we'll have that here. So that was something new I just learned about today, and it should be on the district calendar here shortly because I just approved that today. So other than that, questions about stuff that's in the board report?
Any questions? For those of you who are streaming, we have a detailed reports from each one of our administration, so just highlighting certain areas, but there's a lot more there on the report. Can you turn your mic on, please, Francie?
Is the detention number correct in the last month?
I believe that is correct. It's based on the information that I was given.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, there is.
Like, there's probably only 20 school days or something during that time.
Right. So, yeah, that's something that I'm working on, trying to get a handle on. And so I've made a slight modification in how some of that is done. I believe a large percentage of those are based on kids being late to class. And so that's kind of a focus that I'm working on right now as we finish out the semester.
And that would maybe make sense, because I'm like, wow, what's happening?
Yeah. So, yeah, I get those grasp yet on how this data is entered into places and where I can get it. So I'm just asking people to provide those numbers. It didn't seem that out of the realm of get multiple detentions on a given day if they're tardy multiple times. So, yeah, but again, that is an area that I've recognized that needs to be kind of shored up a little bit, and so that's my focus here as we finish out the semester.
Any further questions? All right, thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you for not commenting on numbers this month, Dale.
Wasn't going there. We have a curriculum page.
Is this on? Okay. So I have one request, and that's that next month I go before these three, because he talked about STEM Club, your pumpkin drop Olympics, you're having dances, and all I've got is stuff about grants that I was going to tell you about that doesn't seem really that exciting now. So since I submitted my report, I think the only update I have, which is exciting to me, is our ESSER 1 and ESSER 3 amendments were approved. And so I've given budgets to Hillary and Krista, and I don't think I have anything else to add. Questions for me? See, that's all I've got. I've got to go first next month.
Okay. All right. We have all the other reports from technology, O&M, transportation, services before you. To approval of consent items, I need a motion, a second to consent agenda items listed attachment A as presented. Yes. Moving on to new business, we have the approval of the MOU with the teacher evaluation for the 2021-22 school year.
I would say this was a very late entry from ISB, October 19th of 2021. At the Board of Education meeting, it was supported to provide the same type of teacher evaluation 2021. So what is that non-tenured teachers would still be evaluated this year be evaluated on cycle. In other words, if an administrator found a reason for that evaluation to be conducted, then it would be, or if the teacher requested that that evaluation should be conducted, it would be. If it's not conducted, then your teacher who is scheduled to be evaluated this year, then they would score a proficient and scored an excellent last time, and in that case, they would maintain that excellent rating. SLOs are optional. So this is basically MOU with what we had last year. And I will be very forthright. The teachers, the administrators, everybody working in a school district has an extreme amount on that everybody's on edge. It's definitely happening with the students, and then of course the staff. They're having to deal with a lot of emotions from kids having a hard time dealing with the world in the last year. So this able to push one piece aside, that's a lot of work for both teachers and administrators, is agreed to that as well, then case for this.
Need a motion. 2020-2022 Teachers Evaluation Memorandum of Understanding as Francie. Second it. Teachers pay.
I wanted to bring of neighbor sub pay. We used to, when a few years ago our teacher was taken, we were one of the higher districts. Right now, if you look at the chart that's included on page 262 in your packet, you'll notice that there's some differentiation there. Pays $200, then every day thereafter. Have some that after 5 days and so on. Districts that give it for retired teachers from within. So it's not a exact comparison, but if you put some of these and kind of give an estimate to where they fall, we're about in the middle. East, who just went up to 150, and Muhammad. Liz Raines, our sub, is not feeling the difference yet. Nobody's said directly that they are not the pay being here elsewhere. Not that they would necessarily, but she doesn't feel like she's losing people for that reason. But I just wanted to bring this, kind of bring it to you ending of December or beginning of January.
I personally need to do something to get up there.
$25 estimated cost for raising sub. That's an estimate.
And that's the same rate for.
Or would change anybody? Some they might not make them move. It's hard to know that for sure.
Has there been any contact with the other districts talking about where we're sitting at with, are you looking at similar numbers, missing subs for?
Yes, I didn't have her positions. We're definitely struggling to fill driver positions. We are unique in that. I know for an example, yeah.
Administrator sitting and I think more issues when the winter comes. When we start to get colder weather, they're starting to already say that cases are starting to increase 3.5%. There are comes from, but saying that there could be another strand that's coming through as well. So I think we're going to have a shortage of substitutes for who may be an incentive to come, incentive to stay. Tier process where you have you're here, you get paid more. I'd rather just say we want you and to get you here. Really, and I don't know how this everything in. I don't know if this was just or part of the people to come in and take was remember that offhand.
That's not part of the back of the CBA. No, I don't. I believe it's a separate.
One's in was on.
A step and a step, and do we lose that person and get that person? I'm worried about. I think, my opinion is a substantial issue. That is the 120. We're like, I don't know, 15s.
The only reason I'm okay with one is if you look at the schools right around us, Fisher is 90. If we go up 10, we're even dealing. I get that, but you right here, we would still feel that we have to
Compete with them. If we were trying to compete with them,
competing with our
but that's
Leroy,
but that's now.
Fisher, and they're all 90.
But that's
So
now.
even, are they really going to 35?
If the sure will call me when they're desperate, because I know that Muhammad and Gibson and all them pay better, but I like going to Fisher because I know the students are going to be well behaved there. I'm willing to take that pay cut for less of a heck in that day. Cool. That.
I talked to Dr. Standifer about that as well, that people would rather sub in a smaller school district and a kids than so.
Jumping ahead of something before we know Fisher.
I think I saw in the paper of the school year.
Yeah. I found out these are touchscreen too. I did not know that.
So I feel that we're in favor of doing it as long as we find out that it's not going to be against that this would go into effect. Are we able?
Horribly.
70 and 50.
If that's something that we want. You said 75?
They went from 75 to 150.
Wow.
I don't even know how they got that.
That's what it said. Per day.
Continue. So, medium.
I could do 120.
Chelsea?
I think you know how I'll vote.
75?
Yep.
What else?
Mhm.
Intent on our part. Financially, it doesn't make a huge difference. Doing our substitutes, which we very for us. That, sure, but I think it just, I don't think it's a make or break, but I think it's a goodwill gesture.
An incentive, I think, to make sure that our administrators and some others are administration and not the teaching. $110 a day to want to.
I get paid $80 to go sub at Fisher. I feel guilty for work that I do, because normally when you have a sub, Blue Ridge, but they actually, if they know that, like if it's a planned one for me, they'll actually have stuff for me to teach, but most of the time it's assigned seat work and just, so I also have that. I loved them when I had subs, but I do feel guilty taking money being a sub.
Hopefully the right kind of people for them to be. Some days, if you're subbing, not the hardest, 15 to 30, depending on the school district, kids for each period of the day. I feel like moving up is in the right direction.